Welcome to State of the World. Today we're going to take a look at the recent violence in the Middle East, specifically looking at the attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq, the American retaliatory response, and kind of how we got here and where this may go. And pointing out that none of this is happening in a vacuum, that the Middle East is a very volatile place, multiple wars going on, many of which involve the United States, many of which involve Iran, and there's many players and actors. But we're going to try and focus on today what happened in Iraq on February 15th, and then with the attack on American troops, the retaliation by the United States, and then kind of what all is the background. So let's take a look here. So first off, why are American soldiers in Iraq? We have several thousand American troops in Iraq. We also have at least several hundred in nearby Syria. They are there officially and have been since 2014 when President Obama sent the troops back to Iraq to fight against the Islamic State, popularly known as ISIS. So we're in Iraq to help protect the Iraqi regime government. It's actually relatively close to a democracy, as Middle Eastern nations go. But we are there to help protect them from the Islamic State, ISIS. And we're in Syria, ostensibly, originally, against ISIS, but also we're against the Assad regime there, which the U.S. sees as an illegitimate government. And the Assad regime in Syria, which has been there for quite a long time, is very anti-Israeli. It is allied with Iran, allied with Iran's proxies and satellites, Hezbollah. They are also fighting against ISIS. They have military support, Russian troops and airplanes from Russia. Vladimir Putin went all in back in 2014 to assist Assad. And so all this is going on in the cockpit of conflict that is the Middle East. So let's, again, go look specifically at what happened in Iraq here in February of 2021 and go back to what happened a year ago under the Trump administration. And as you recall, in December of 2019, Iraqi Shiite militias, which are supported by, supplied by, trained by, some say very much controlled by Iran, launched attacks on American bases, killing American troops. This is back in 2019, early 2020. And so the United States retaliated with airstrikes on the Shiite militia bases and camps in both Iraq and Syria. So that kind of tit-for-tat back and forth is fairly common in the Middle East. But then after the U.S. retaliation on the Shiite militias then attacked the United States Embassy in Baghdad, which is heavily fortified. So just an aside here about these militias. So there are many different militias and semi-independent and autonomous groups in Iraq. The Iraqi government is a coalition government involving Kurds, Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims, and the Shiite militias in the fight against ISIS were made into, they were already pre-existing from the earlier wars. They were brought under the umbrella, as it were, of the Iraqi government and military as another arm of Iraq's fight against ISIS. So these militias have a semi-official function, but they also act very independently, and they also act many times at the behest of Iran. So we have the siege of the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad in early January of 2020. The United States, at the orders of President Trump, then assassinated the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's general, Qasem Soleimani, as he was visiting Baghdad. And in the car with him when it was destroyed, by a U.S. drone, was also the leader of the Iraqi Shiite militia, Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. So 2 major figures killed in that one strike. So that was a direct attack on an Iranian figure, an important figure. And need to point out that Soleimani was behind many Iranian and Iranian proxy attacks on Western and Israeli targets over the years. So he's a major guy in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. Major guy in Iran's war on the West and war on Israel, which has been going on for decades now. So, in retaliation, again, there's that tit-for-tat thing here again. In retaliation, Iran then launched rocket attacks, or missile attacks more specifically, on Iraqi bases containing U.S. personnel. That then didn't result in any fatalities. Over 100 American servicemen and women on those bases were injured, primarily with traumatic brain injuries, i.e. concussions and similar injuries. But there were no fatalities. So at that point, the U.S. did not retaliate back. So Iran continually has been saying, especially as we approach the anniversary here in early 2021, that they still plan on and intend to take revenge on the United States for the death of Soleimani. So there's that in the background. So then, this year, in 2021, on February 15th, relatively unknown Iraqi Shiite militias launched rocket attacks on bases in Iraq that contain U.S. personnel. Again, these American troops are there to support the Iraqi military and government in the ongoing fight against ISIS. And regardless of what any American president has said, that war is still ongoing against ISIS. So, in that attack, one U.S. contractor was killed, not an American citizen, but employed by the United States as a contractor. At least one American service member was wounded. Various Iraqis were wounded as well. And we ended up with another situation here. And remember, we've had the change of administrations. Joe Biden became president on January 20th. And so this is the first major challenge by a foreign power to the United States under the Biden administration. Let's not make any excuses here. The Iraqi Shiite militias are working with and for Iran. An attack by them is really happening with Iran's blessing. Okay? So let's make no question. This was a challenge by Iran. Now, they're using the Iraqi Shiite proxies as kind of an end around. It's like, we're not going to attack directly, but we will send a message to the Americans, to the new president, that we're still here. And so everyone's kind of looking to see what will Joe Biden do. So Joe Biden, and the Pentagon stated clearly, we're going to make sure we know what we're doing. We're going to investigate. We're going to plan. And so then on February 25th, U.S. conducted airstrikes on these Shiite militias at their bases in eastern Syria, very, very close to the Iraqi border. Basically, it's a border crossing. And so initial reports show that this was an attack on the militia's infrastructure, destroying stuff. But then some later reports indicate that up to 17 militia members were killed. So blood has been drawn on both sides here. There no publicly known further attacks by these militias or Iran in retaliation to our retaliation. But keep in mind, none of this is happening in a vacuum. There's a lot going on in the Middle East. We still have the fighting in Syria. Israel is still, as they have been for years now, launching occasional drone, missile, and or aircraft attacks against Hezbollah, against Syrian government positions in Syria. Again, they are in a proxy war with Iran, and they have no bones about it. Saudi Arabia is involved in a proxy war against Iran. Saudi Arabia has been involved for several years now in the Yemeni civil war. Yemen's the country to the south of Saudi Arabia. Civil war there. The Shiite minority in northern Yemen, has been fighting against the established Yemeni government, which is being supported by Saudi Arabia and others, including the United States, for several years. So the Iran supports these healthy Yemeni forces, which are Shiite. And Iran, of course, if I had mentioned earlier, is the predominant Shiite Muslim nation in the world. And so we have this ongoing war in Yemen. And not long after taking office, Joe Biden, his administration, they took the Houthis off the U.S. terrorism list. So the list of official entities that we say are terrorists. Also, Joe Biden officially ended American support for Saudi Arabia's war in the Yemen. We've been involved as a supporter, and there have been earlier clashes in the early part of Trump's administration when the Houthis fired at American ships. We retaliated. Kind of nothing else happened in that regard. America still does commando attacks in Yemen, mostly against al-Qaeda and ISIS targets. We've stayed out of the direct conflict of the Houthi-Saudi war. But the Houthis, with the aid and assistance of Iran, have been launching drone attacks, missile attacks, rocket attacks on Saudi Arabian cities, Saudi Arabian oil facilities. And some of those attacks on the facilities have supposedly been coming from Iran and or from Shiite-controlled areas of Iraq. Again, none of this is happening in a vacuum. Earlier this week, there's an attack on an Israeli cargo ship in the Persian Gulf. Israel is blaming Iran. The ship was not sunk. It has some holes in it, but it made it to port. And reports are that this was an attack by the Iranians. We're still waiting to see if there's more information on that and or confirmation. Israel and Iran, a lot of tension there. And then, again, none of this is in a vacuum. Today, on February 28th, 2021, Iran rejected the offer of direct talks with the United States on the ongoing issue of Iranian nuclear weapons. Iran is developing their nuclear program. It's been under attack by cyber warfare from the Israeli and or American side, most likely in conjunction. Israel has been making attacks on Iranian infrastructure, the assassination of Iranian nuclear scientists. Of course, Israel denies all this, but Iran blames Israel, and it's most likely is accurate. So again, these conflicts in Iraq that involve the United States and Iran are part of a larger, ongoing proxy war between Iran on the one side and Israel and the United States on the other. And in between, we have the Yemenis, the Iraqis. We have various other ships in the Persian Gulf have come under Iranian attack, either outwardly or attacks that everyone is blaming on Iran, but they're denying. So what happens next? Well, who knows? Iran is still saying they want the revenge for what happened to Soleimani and lobbing missiles at American bases in Iraq. Apparently does not constitute their idea of revenge. So we're going to be watching this issue as things keep going, and we will be reporting to you on what happens and our analysis. So just remember, none of this happens just because it happens. There's always background, there's history, and we have other issues going on. So it's all, in our mind, it really is connected. And Iran is very much in conflict with these other countries. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. We have the ongoing problem issue of the killing of the Saudi journalist Khashoggi. Happened last year. And a very important member of the Saudi government has been implicated in that. So, again, The Biden administration is ramping up pressure on Saudi Arabia to be a responsible actor in the area as well. And again, if we're looking at what is best policy for the United States, we need to support democracies. We need to oppose authoritarian regimes. The challenge, though, is that we are allied to one of the most authoritarian regimes in the Middle East, which is the Saudi government. As long as we are dependent on the petroleum products and the rest of the Western world, Europe and Japan in particularly are dependent on Persian Gulf and Saudi oil, we are connected to the Saudis, whether we like it or not. I think Biden is correct in trying to apply pressure on the Saudi government to stop doing this authoritarian, totalitarian type dictatorial killing off of political opponents. But we also just can't cut them off because we have the problem of Iran. And if we go too far in our analysis, if we go too far in cutting Saudi Arabia off from American support, where are they going to go? They're in a death struggle, death match with the Iranians. And who will they go to? They could go to Israel, but that could cause problems with the rest of the Muslim world. Plus, Israel is powerful, but relatively they have their own limitations. They need Saudi Arabia needs a superpower in their corner. They could potentially go to Russia. Less likely because Russia is now supporting the Assad government, which Saudi Arabia is in conflict with as well. Then there's China. China is using her money as a soft power influence around the world. China is establishing military bases. They have a stake in a Pakistani military naval base in the Indian Ocean. They have a military base in the African country of Djibouti, which is very close to one of our bases, which, by the way, is right across the Persian Gulf, or excuse me, the Red Sea, and from Yemen. And so, if we cut off aid to Saudi Arabia in the face of all this stuff going on with Iran, what will the Saudis do? So, Joe Biden and the United States need to very carefully get through this issue and try to hold the Saudi government accountable, hold the Iranians accountable for all the violence that they're doing, while at the same time not driving our Saudi allies into the arms of the Chinese or the Russians. It's a delicate balancing act. And so, while also potentially avoiding a full-scale war with Iran, which if we have this back and forth shooting and missiles and whatnot going back and forth, it could easily happen. And then there's the issue of the whole Iran and the nuclear weapons. Israel's very worried. The U.S. is worried. The Saudis are worried. This is an explosive situation. We will continue to monitor it. So, that is our report for today. We hope you have found it illuminating, informative, and again, please subscribe to our newsletter at stateoftheworld.substack.com and also subscribe to our podcast. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day. This is State of the World reporting. God bless. Goodbye.